Hello, my name's Becky May and this is Sunny the Yoga Cat, and today I'd like to share with you a yin yoga sequence. So before we start, just a little bit of information about yin yoga. Yin yoga as opposed to yang yoga. So we're looking at the yin and the yang balance of energy within each and every one of us. Yang is classically more associated with the masculine energy, yin with the feminine energy, but we're talking energy, not gender. You know, we all carry both. Yang energy is about doing, it's about achievement, it's about having a goal and moving towards it, it's directional, it's goal focused, and it's very active and kind of outward looking. Yin energy is the energy of receptivity, of stillness, of surrender, of softness, and it's more about the process and being in the moment of the process rather than having any sense of end goal. So if you reflect on the world we live in, you could perhaps say that we live in quite a yang dominated world. You know, we're very focused as we go about our daily lives on achievements, and we're always moving and we're very active. And how often do we give ourselves this time for conscious stillness to really let the yin energy within us rise? And that's very different from watching telly or reading a book, because we're still doing. So for me, the yin practice is much needed in the world, personally and collectively, just to bring an energetic balance. And it's when we get into this deep state of receptivity and stillness and surrender that deep healing can occur. It allows us to do some deep inner listening to what's really going on in the present moment. It's all about present moment awareness and acceptance about what you find. So it's about becoming that observer, tapping into our inner observer who's always there, doesn't judge anything right or wrong, just observes what's happening in any moment, the equanimous mind. So it's also a very great meditative or mindfulness practice. We really work with mindfulness. In a practical way, how it's different from a yang class, so most of my flow classes are quite yang, quite active and dynamic. In the yang practices, we're really working the body, we're actively using muscles, and we're stretching muscles, we're stretching the body at the muscle level, the tissue level. In the yin, we try and do the opposite. We try and use as few muscles as possible to hold the shapes. We're still holding the same kind of yoga shapes, although most of them are on the mat, on the floor, with very rarely standing. And we try and switch off as many muscles as possible, so that we're just using the bare minimum muscles required to hold the shape. And how we do that is by use of props. So you'll notice next to me there's an intriguing little pile of things. And so we support the body where we can with props, and I'll talk about props more shortly. The other things in yin is that we hold the postures for longer. So it's this practice of mindfulness, and we're coming to stillness. So we try and hold stillness as much as possible through the practice. And this allows us to just drop through the layers. It's a very deep and subtle practice, the yin practice. And we go beyond the superficial tissue layer of stretching, and we're getting deeper into the body, more into, like, first of all, the tendons and the ligaments, maybe even down to the skeletal structure, the bones, creating space in the skeletal structure, in the joints, even in the marrow of the bones. You know, that's also a tissue that needs attention. So we're going really deep. And then ultimately we're going to the energetic level. We're clearing the energetic channels, the nadis. And because everything's slow and mindful, it's a practice where even if you don't discern or perceive the more subtle aspects of the practice in the more active, busy yang classes, which is, I mean, I don't necessarily, but in the yin it's much easier to tap into the subtler, energetic flow of energy around your body. So yeah, holding for 5 minutes, using props, and also we don't go to our deepest stretch at all, or deepest place of any posture. We deliberately hold back. You're looking at maybe 60% of what you know you could do, so that we create this sense of spaciousness. We're not striving. Striving is a yang energy. We make the shape. If after the course of 5 minutes the body invites you very obviously to go deeper, then you might go a little bit deeper. But it's not about trying to get anywhere. You know, it's a very different mind attitude, and it can take a long time to make that shift. You know, it's a slow burner, the yin practice. If you are someone that does a lot of yang, I mean, I definitely love the yang. You know, I'm a very physical person, and that's why I need the yin, and have received so many fruits from doing a yin practice over a long period of time. It's given me a lot. Not just appreciation of the more subtle aspects of definitely tapping into my pranic body, my energetic body, and the subtleties of that, but also deep healing. There is a real sense of less is more. There's a real wisdom in when we let go of striving. So often what we're striving for just appears, and I've had some deep healings of releasing injuries, energetic knots, physical tension, just by not doing anything. So I will be timing us in the postures, and just a little talk about the props. So I have here a variety of blocks. So basically it's a time to pull together any of yoga props you might have. A strap, I don't think we'll necessarily use a strap today, but we might, it could be useful, and I'll direct at the time if it is. But definitely blocks. So if you've got any blocks, and if you don't have blocks, anything that's kind of block sized and will support your weight. So a heavy book, a thick hardback book can be a real ally in a yin practice. This kind of more spongy flat block to sit on or to support wherever we need to support. We get very creative in yin with the use of props. It doesn't matter how we use them, it's just about feeling supported. So other things, cushions, folded up blankets. I've put a blanket on my mat because we'll be on the floor a lot, so it just immediately makes it more comfortable. And other things that are very useful is if you have a spare mat, so you can roll it up, and this can be an extra prop for anywhere. It can be a bolster. If you have a yoga bolster, definitely get that involved in your practice. And I don't have a bolster with me right now in Portugal, so I've created a bolster. I have quite a firm blanket here, so if you roll up a firm blanket, it's not a squidgy blanket, it's quite a firm cotton blanket, and you can create this bolster. The other way of creating a bolster is to roll a blanket, have a rolled up mat, and then roll your blanket around the mat, kind of like a sausage roll, and then you've got, because bolsters need to be quite firm, and then we might use that to lay up the spine or to lay on. Okay, so have your props to hand. I just need to retrieve my phone for the timing. Okay, so the sequence we're going to do today, I'm very much gained my insight, or inspiration for the yin yoga teaching from a teacher called Sarah Powis. She's one of the really well-known yin yoga teachers, an amazing woman, amazing teacher and practitioner, very inspiring for me. Her book, Insight Yoga, is fantastic. I highly recommend. And she has these home practice sequences of yin yoga which are based on the meridian. She kind of links yoga in with the Chinese system of healing, which is very topical for me at the moment. I'm really fusing these in my own practice at the moment. So this sequence we're going to do is inspired by Sarah Powers' book Insight Yoga, and it's the sequence that's for the kidney meridian. So the kidneys and the urinary bladder. So definitely one of the key meridians for the kidneys is running up the inner seam of the legs, but also up the outer seam of the legs and up the back. So we'll be stretching these parts of the body. So we'll get going. We're going to start. The yin postures have different names from classic yoga, by the way. So I'll use both. So we're going to start in what would be called Tirasana, the diamond pose in yang, but in yin it's called the butterfly pose. So we're going to bring the soles of the feet together, but they're not close into the groin, they're quite far in front, so you've got this diamond shape. And because we're going to be here for a while, this extra blanket under the ankles can be really good. You might want to support the outer thighs, one on each side, with a block or a blanket or a cushion. Always having a block or something similar to support the head is a great option as well. So we just start to take the hands towards the feet, remembering maximum 60% of your full depth of this posture. And we just start to drop the head. If there's any way, if the head easily meets the block, whether it's behind the feet or even on the feet, then great. You can have the palms up in this active surrender, which is really encouraging the yin energy. So wherever possible we support the head in yin, but if it's not possible, don't strain, no straining. So if it's not possible, you can just take your hands to the feet and just drop the head between the upper arms. If it makes it easier for you, you could be sitting on a low block as well. So find support for the thighs, the lower back, the head, and then we drop in. So we're here for 5 minutes or so, maybe 3 minutes. And we just start to drop into the body, start to let go of tension. But without any striving. We're not even striving to let go of tension here. We're just being. Yin is the energy of being, not doing. And as I say, for many of us, this is a huge jump to make. We're so used to doing. It can take a while to kind of get your head round or understand and appreciate the benefits of the Yin practice. But I highly recommend that journey. It's like giving yourself a gift of stillness, a gift of conscious stillness, of being with yourself in a different way, with no need to achieve anything, just to watch, to observe. So let each posture be a bit of a journey and a mindfulness journey. Stay very present to what is occurring. And of course, one of the best ways of staying present is by staying conscious of your breathing. So we're breathing in and out consciously through the nose, slow deep breaths, but without lots of straining. So a kind of a natural but conscious breath. If you know Ujjayi breath, you can do a very gentle Ujjayi breath here, constricting the throat muscles. But only if that comes easily to you, otherwise just conscious breathing through the nose, in and out. Sometimes when you've been in the posture for a while, it's clear from the body. There's an invitation to go deeper, but it's never with a sense of straining. It's only the natural unfolding. And in each posture, always scanning the body, noticing where you might be holding tension. Classic parts we hold tension are the jaw, so releasing the jaw, having a gap between the teeth, the shoulders, the belly. We've got about one more minute here. Notice if that statement elicits an emotional response or a physical response of tightening or relaxing. And whatever you're observing, just open yourself to it, surrender yourself to it, rather than judging it or resisting it. The only caveat, and it's an important caveat in Yin, is if the body is giving you clear feedback that this is inappropriate for you, and that would be sharp shooting pains of some kind, in most cases, then you honour and respect that and back off, come out of the posture, ease off, or just wait and join in the next posture, or modify with props. Otherwise, with other perhaps discomfort that you're experiencing, try and instead judge it as bad and resist it. See if you can just be the curious and impartial observer, accepting whatever you find, opening to it, surrendering to it. Okay, and slowly coming up. So in Yin, we come into and out of the postures very slowly. So keeping the head down, slowly bringing yourself up. The last thing to come up is the head. Great. And then we're going to come to a posture that might not be appropriate for everyone. So it's called the saddle. I love it, but I'm going to give you lots of options. I'm going to give you an alternative as well. So the full posture, we come onto our knees, moving slowly. We transition between the postures very slowly in Yin. Oh, just got a splinter. So the big toes are together and the knees are wide. The knees are about mat distance apart. Now you can work with a rolled up blanket or bolster, or if you have a firm rolled up blanket, you can use that. So rolled up mat, bolster or firm rolled up blanket. I'm going to use my blanket here. So we're going to just see how this feels. It can be a very intense compression in the lower back for some people, and also if you're tight on the thighs or you have any knee problems, it's not going to potentially be appropriate for you. So But for some of you, it might be fine to just lie your spine along the bolster. If the knees pop up off the floor, then it's not for you. We want the head to be supported. You can let the head be supported by the floor, but if that feels too much of a compression for the neck, you might want to take a block, take it underneath the head. And we can be here. So this is one option, to use the bolster or the blanket. You can also do this on the floor without any support, which is lovely if you're open enough to do so, so it would just look exactly the same, but you would slowly lower yourself down. So my buttocks are on my heels, I'm on the top of my feet, my big toes are touching, and my knees are on the floor. So this is the full posture for those for whom it's appropriate. Okay, for many people this is not going to be appropriate. So instead of this, we're just going to take a different posture, which is opening up the body in a different way, but it's knees bent position, so you're still getting that compression. So we're just going to draw the knees into the chest. So this is your alternative here if the saddle is not right for you. So it's kind of the opposite because you're curving the spine in the other way, but it doesn't matter because we're stimulating the meridians. So we're just moving the spine, compressing and opening the spine in different ways, stretching the meridian, the kidney and urinary bladder meridians in different ways. So either here or coming into your saddle. So find your way into your posture. And we're going to be here for probably another 3 minutes. So settling in. Very different vibe, the yin practice. You kind of go at your own pace. When you're in your posture, either hugging the knees into the chest or in the saddle with or without support, do that little scan around the body. Where might I be holding tension? Can I let that tension go? Can I give myself permission to release? Not striving to release, but just giving yourself permission. Opening to the sensations that you encounter in your inner, impartial yet curious observer. Staying connected to your breath, the natural but conscious in and outflow of the breath. Noticing, are you holding tension in your upper back? Are you holding tension in your jaw? If you're lying on your back, can you release the back into the mat or your prop, whichever you're using? One more breath here. Sorry, 1 more minute here. I slipped back into yang for a moment. Autopilot, you see. We're kind of trained for a yang existence. So yeah, giving yourself this gift of a rebalance. Finding an oasis of stillness in your busy, active life, giving you so much nourishment. Letting go. We're going to come out of this slowly. In yin yoga you can stay in postures a lot longer than this, like minimum 5 minutes up to 10 minutes. But for today, because it's my first one I'm teaching online, we're doing more or less 3 or so minutes per posture.
So when we're in yin, we think about coming out before we come out, so we don't rush, keeping everything calm and steady so the nervous system always stays calm. So think about moving, and to come out, if you're on your back, either on or not on a prop, you're using your elbows, you're propping yourself up on your elbows, and then slowly pushing yourself up. If you're lying on your back, hugging your knees into your chest, just roll onto your side first, and then use your hands to push yourself up. We're going to come down onto our bellies, so just take your time, moving slowly. And again, it's nice that I have the blanket underneath my elbows and underneath my pelvis here, my hip bones. You might, if you have projecting hip bones, you might want to double up the mat again so it's really comfortable. And we're just going to come into the Sphinx. So you want your elbows just in front of the shoulders, forearms parallel, spread the fingertips a little bit. And this is one of the postures in yin where we do have to work a little bit harder. We have to activate a few more muscles to hold the shape than in some of the other postures. Because if we don't activate muscles, we're going to collapse and our shoulders are going to drop around, or our ears are going to drop into our shoulders, and we actually create tension. So we need to activate the back muscles enough, the minimum effort, so that we have this sense of extension through the spine out the top of the head, and there's lots of space between the shoulders and the ears. You can have a gap between the feet and relax the buttocks. If this is too much compression for your lower back, so we're going to be here a few minutes, you can walk the elbows further forward so that you're actually supported on your lower ribs as well. We're trying to relax the buttocks, but for some people, if the lower back's very tight, you might need to just ever so slightly engage the buttocks just to take some of the stress away from the back. But for otherwise, we're releasing the buttocks. And we just hold. You can close the eyes. I really encourage closing the eyes in a yin practice because it's this energy of darkness and stillness, like the womb-like energy, a healing space, a space of infinite potential, the void of creativity. So we're going back into that stillness that we came from, and darkness. Relax the jaw and breathe with consciousness. So a practice that I love to do, especially in yin, is to really hold the part of my body that I can feel being transformed or worked in some way, or stretched or compressed. So here it's the lower back is being compressed. Hold that area of body in my awareness as I breathe with consciousness, as if I'm breathing into that area of the body. And the mantra, breathing in space, breathing out tension, if you like to work with mantra. Mantra being a repeated phrase that we say in our minds or out loud. You're really supported in the legs by the floor beneath you, so let the legs be very relaxed here. Buttocks relaxed unless you need that tiny hint of activation. Breathe into the lower back. Feel the breath moving the body. Feel as you inhale that stretch of the chest. Spaciousness in the back. Being this curious observer, just very present and aware to what is in this moment, without judgment. Good, bad, right, wrong. So we've got about 2 more minutes left. You can stay exactly where you are in the Sphinx, but if the body is inviting you to go further, you can turn the hands out to the sides of the mat a little bit, and then start to press through the hands to straighten the arms. So in yin, this is called the seal. So it's the same, but a little bit deeper. So the lower back's more compressed now. Again, we need to activate the spine to stop the shoulders crunching around the ears. So there is a little bit of work to do to keep the extension in the spine. But keep the legs relaxed, the buttocks soft. And if this is too much, you'll feel the feedback from your body if you're very present and aware. Then just come back onto the elbows. Otherwise, continue to breathe. Continue to release where you can release, the jaw, the buttocks, the legs, the feet, the face. Dropping deeper and deeper into your inner world. Come out carefully, so think about coming out and then just pushing through the hands slightly as you lower the spine, the front of the spine down to the mat, almost vertebra by vertebra, and just take the elbows wide, bring the hands underneath the forehead, just rest the forehead on the mat, or if you prefer you can take the hands by the side and turn a cheek to the floor. Release the lower back, just gently moving the hips side to side, and then come to stillness. And we're just going to take some resting breaths here, really feeling gravity pull the spine down into its neutral curves, its neutral position. And really full breaths here, breathing space back into that lower back that was compressed. After the compression, fresh blood, fresh prana, fresh energy floods into that area and plumps up the intervertebral discs with all this new blood following the compression. So really good therapy for the spine. Breathe to facilitate this process deeply into the lower back. We're going to slowly come up to seated, so move slow. So we can bring the hands underneath the shoulders and we can just peel our spine off the floor again. We have to press through the hands a little bit, and you might just want to take a little child's pose here, not as a full yin posture, but just for a moment to sink the hips onto the heels and take the hands forward and just rest the head towards the floor. Breathe into the lower back. And then slowly coming up to kneeling, so just walk the hands in towards the knees. Last thing to come up is the head, really moving slowly and calmly. We're going to come to seated. So we're coming into a seated forward fold, and because this is yin we want to make this very comfortable. You could sit on one of the little low spongy blocks. I like to, even though I'm relatively open, just put a blanket underneath the knees here. So I really recommend that, something, a cushion, a blanket or a block underneath the knees, because we're not going to our deepest expression. It's not what it's about. Again, a support for the head is wonderful if we can. So we just slowly, we want to have a tiny amount of activation in the legs so they're not just completely flopping out to the centre. So the toes, they don't need to be very actively pointing up, but they're more or less pointing forwards. And we slowly walk the hands. I like to have this palms up position of surrender and drop the head. 60% maximum of your full stretch in this. So for some of us, we're just going to be upright. That's already enough of a stretch. We're not trying to stretch the muscle tissue. We're trying to create space. But for those of you who it's comfortable to do so, you could get creative and try and find a way of supporting the head. The head is a very heavy weight, so in yin, if it can be supported, it's super helpful to just release the neck muscles. But it's fine. If it's not possible, you just drop the head between the upper arms. You can also, if you have a bolster or if you had a blanket round a rolled up mat, you could lay that across the thighs, and again, if it's comfortable and easily available, you could rest the forehead or turn a cheek to the side, or again get creative with your blocks. If you're turning a cheek to side, halfway through I'm going to tell you to change sides. So dropping in to the shape, supporting yourself where you need. It's really nice actually having this support on the belly. It feels very comforting to rest the soft belly on a prop, a bolster or a rolled up blanket round a rolled up mat. Or a cushion, but not essential. Dropping into stillness, staying connected with your breath, scanning the body. If you find any pockets of tension, just give yourself permission to release. Nurture yourself with this practice, be kind to yourself, support yourself with props. Don't push, don't strive, you're exactly where you need to be. So you're about halfway, so just turn the other cheek if you've got a cheek to the side. Pins and needles is very common in yin as you go through this journey of the posture. Often a sense of pins and needles can increase and intensify. And this is very normal, it's just because we're temporarily compressing or affecting the circulation. So see if you can again just open to it, be this curious observer rather than resisting it or thinking it's wrong. And often you watch the journey, it just intensifies and then it drops away. Sometimes it keeps intensifying. You might get to a point where the body needs to move. It's okay, move. But for as long as we can be still and be the curious observer, then we just watch and open and see how everything is transient. Everything is passing through. The good, the so-called good, bad and ugly. Everything's passing through. think about coming out of this before we move. So think about slowly coming out. And then if you've got a cheek to the side, just make sure you're looking down and first, and then slowly start to walk the hands back towards you. Last thing to come up is the head. And just remove any props that you've been using. So we're going to stay seated, and we're going to come to a wide leg seated position. So in Yang this is Upavishta, in Yin it's called the dragonfly. So we come into the dragonfly. So remember, we're not trying to get to a massively wide position here. Like before, there's a little bit of activation in the legs just to stop them totally flopping out or in, but not at all like super active Yang. Just relax, but awareness in the legs. Sitting on a cushion or a block, again, to elevate the hips can be really helpful. You can again put cushions, blankets, blocks underneath the knees here just to keep that little bend in the knees if you need. And then we just let this posture unfold. So no straining. This is another classic where we kind of want to often be further than we are, which is a Yang. Yang, the mind has a very Yang quality. It's the mind that wants us to achieve and do and keep reaching and striving. So just try and drop out of the mind and into the body and listen to where you just feel that spaciousness. So for me, I don't want to go into my deepest stretch, because when I'm like about 60% and you just feel this spaciousness. Now if you're very tight, you might not be able to feel that sense of spaciousness immediately, but by a Yin practice over a long time, I guarantee you'll eventually start to perceive at a more subtle level kind of the energy flow. So we're really working with this inner leg C meridian here, the kidneys, and maybe you can start to tune in to where there might be stuck areas or whether the energy is flowing freely. You could breathe into the kidney area. The kidneys are located either side of the spine and the lower back area. Again, dropping the head between the upper arm, and again, if it's easily available for you, you can rest the head on a block. We can get very creative with use of props. You could start to make little kind of block mountains. See, that feels great, but my body is asking me to be here. So I follow. It's not straining and striving. It's deep inner listening, present moment awareness, acceptance and surrender. Relax the jaw, relax the belly, relax the shoulders. Only the slightest activation of the legs. Breathe into the back, breathe into the kidneys. Nourish the kidneys with your breath. Around about now in a Yin practice, I often start to feel this sense of expansiveness. I'm just starting to feel it in this posture, like my energetic body is expanding and growing, and I'm almost dissolving. I'm feeling myself more as an energetic being than a physical being. The boundaries are softening between me and the outer world. So these are the things you may or may not start to notice, and there's no judgment if you don't or you do. It's not better or worse, it's just being this curious observer, opening to whatever the experience is for you. slowly going to think about coming out. So start to bring the hands back towards you. Last thing to come up is the head. When we come up, just take a moment just to breathe with the spine and its neutral curves. It feels like such a gift to start to feel the yin energy swell and rise and come to the fore. Very healing. So one at a time, take your hand behind the knee and bring the legs in towards you. We're going to come down onto our backs. So we're going to be on our back now for the whole of the rest of the class. So if you've got hair bobbling, you might want to take it out. So we start with the supine twist. So we just take the feet, with the knees bent, take the feet to the floor. Just lift the hips ever so slightly and scoot them maybe a few centimetres, 2 or 3 centimetres to the right, just to offset the hips and allow the knees to come down to the left. You can take the arms out more or less in line with the shoulders or closer to the body if that's less strain for you. Palms can be up or down. Things you can do here, if the thighs don't come together, take a rolled up blanket or a bolster or a cushion between the legs. You can also have the blanket under the ankle that's on the floor. And you can just, in the yin, I tend to prefer to just look up, but you can look over your opposite shoulder. But I feel personally more spaciousness around the neck, so you just look up here. And then let go, drop in, enjoy, stay with your conscious breath. Relax the jaw. You can do real belly breaths now. If you've been doing ujjayi breaths, you could maybe release and just breathe into the belly, diaphragmatic belly breath here as we open this area of the body. Just thinking about coming out of this before we do. You might need to remove the block or the prop. And just one at a time, bring the feet back to the mat and rolling back to the centre. Just lifting the hips. Just come back to the central alignment for a moment. Take a breath or two there. And then we go to the other side. So again, press through the feet, offset the hips over to the left, just 2 or 3 centimetres. And with or without your block, your prop between your thighs, just let the knees come over to the right. And either look over the opposite shoulder or again experiment with just looking up. And letting go. The wind is getting up here, I hope you can hear me over the wind, but just releasing the muscles in the upper back, finding any pockets of tension, giving yourself permission to release. Relax the jaw, breathe into the belly. Again, we're going to think about moving out of this before we move. So removing any blanket or cushion you might have between the thighs. Slowly, just one at a time, place the feet back on the mat. Just lift the hips and bring yourself back into central alignment. And our last posture before the ultimate yin posture, Shavasana, the corpse pose, is Happy Baby. So for Happy Baby, if there's no straining and striving involved, you can reach the feet, then hold on to the little toe edges or the big toe edges of the feet. Knees are wide and coming towards the shoulders, but we don't want to strain. So if you can't find the feet easily, hold on to the ankles, or you can hold on to the backs of the knees, so you just drape your inner wrists on the backs of the knees. The final option, which suits some people better, get a similar stretch, is to just bring the heels close to the buttocks, but knees still wide near the armpits, and just hold the front of the knees. Okay, so there's something for everyone. And we just allow gravity to do the work here. Gravity is our friend always, but especially in the yin, when we're releasing, letting go, surrendering. So it's just the weight of your hands. You're not pulling, you're not activating the arm muscles. Just let gravity do its job. Breathe. So we're going to think about coming out of this. So just one at a time. Bring a heel into the buttock, then the other heel. Bring your hands to your outer knees and just draw the knees together. We're not going to hold this as a yin posture, but you might just want to interlace the hands, rest them on the front of the shin for a moment. Making sure the whole of the back's connecting with the floor, so we're knees to chest, or holding the backs of the knees. Shoulders relaxed, jaw relaxed. Just for a few breaths here. Breathing into the lower back, the hips. And most of the yin postures really work with this hinge of the body, the tight lower back, the tightness around the hips, inner and outer. And then one at a time, just extend those legs down the mat. We're going to come into Shavasana, the corpse pose, but make it a very supported corpse pose. So it's worth taking the time to get set up, even if you have to come back up, in which case move very slowly. But you might want a rolled up blanket, especially if you have any hint of lower back issues. A rolled up blanket or bolster or cushion under the knees can really help the lower back. You might even want a kind of very flat cushion or rolled up blanket under the head. It's best not to lift the head too much because it compresses around the neck, but you know, a little bit of padding under the head. Make sure you're warm, so if you need a blanket, it's nice and warm here today, so I'm not going to need a blanket, but make sure you're warm, so put a blanket over you. And also if you have an eye pillow or just a piece of clothing, just put it over your eyes so that we can encourage this darkness as well as the stillness. And then we just drop into a lovely Shavasana to finish the class. So as I say, the ultimate yin posture, because it's all about surrender. So just feel the body supported by the floor beneath you. And so feel how there's nothing for you to do here. There's nothing for you to do. The autonomic nervous system is doing the breathing for you. So release any breath control you might have had. Just let that go. Let all the muscles drop away from the bones. Let the floor support you. Let the earth support you. Just do a little scan around the body. And again, if you find any areas of tension or any parts of the back of the body that feel like they're not quite connecting with the floor, just release. Give yourself permission to release. Check the jaw is released, so a gap between the teeth. And the eyes just gently rolling back in their sockets. And then, although the body is totally inert and heavy now, the mind stays alert. So it's still this kind of mindfulness practice. And really, this is often when you can have quite profound moments of feeling into the subtleties of your energetic body. And you may or may not, but often in Shavasana, after any practice, but for me, especially a yin practice, again, I mentioned it earlier, I feel this sense of myself as energy. I'm expansive, I'm expanding beyond the physical skin of my body, or the physical boundary of my skin is somehow less solid. And there's this expansiveness, or buzzing energy, or warmth, or just a lovely, warm, pleasant feeling, buzzing stillness, any of these phrases, and you may not feel any of this, and that is absolutely fine too. First thing to let go of is any expectation, any mental projections, expectations, judgments, just letting it all drop away, and just being the observer, the curious watcher, non-judgmental, equanimous, impartial, yet infinitely loving and accepting. There's not a part of ourselves that can't be loved and accepted. Not a single part, physical, emotional, mental, energetic. Really, the yoga path, it's about balance and unity and integration, bringing all the parts of ourselves back home, welcoming them home, accepting, loving all of ourselves. Now, because this is a home practice, this is your personal yin practice, if you have time and you wish to stay longer in Shavasana, please by all means take it. This is the gift to yourself, this stillness, this surrender. But if you're closing the practice with me today, we're going to very gradually, we're going to first think about coming out of Shavasana, and then we're going to very slowly and gradually start to come out. So we begin by just deepening the breath a little bit, bringing awareness back to our breath. And maybe just starting to move the fingers and the toes a little bit, maybe ever so slowly moving the head side to side. And we don't really want to wake the body up too much. We want to kind of keep this yin energy flowing as we move away from our practice into our day. Maybe you're doing this before bed and you just want to float into bed. Great idea. Or if it's the beginning of the day, take this beautiful yin energy out into the world that so needs it. So keeping this slow, steady energy calm. So you might just want to, one at a time, bring the knees towards the chest, just for a moment. And then we're going to roll onto our side. So roll classically onto the left side. It doesn't have to be. And just take a few moments here. I've got a block under my head. It was just conveniently there, but the support under the head can be nice. So we don't come up too fast. We're kind of in that recovery position. Very restorative and calming for the nervous system. And then we're going to slowly push ourselves up to seated. So use your hands. The last thing to come up, as always, is the head. And we'll just close together. So just find a comfortable seated position. You can be leaning against the wall. Closing the eyes. Keeping this awareness internal and consciously harnessing, though we've let the yin energy that's within all of us, it's innate within all of us, we've given it space to rise and grow and expand. So just have this sense of harnessing that energy as you bring the palms together at the centre of the chest. Setting an intention with yourself to take this yin energy away with you for the rest of your day or into the dream time. So needed personally and collectively. And when you feel complete, opening the eyes. Namaste. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed. I shall do more yin practices to come. And I hope to see you again soon.